1841. A young priest walks Turin streets. The Industrial Revolution has turned this northern Italian city into something brutal. Factory smoke, mud, boys sleeping under bridges. John Bosco is 26 years old. He's fresh from ordination. His spiritual director told him to go observe, so he watches. And what he sees changes everything. These aren't just poor kids. They're 12, 13, 14 years old, hard faces, betting on corners, fighting, cursing, no families, no homes, no God. Turin's population is 117,000. The boys? They're invisible, expendable. The city uses them, breaks them, forgets them. But Bosco can't forget. Because 9 years ago, when he was 9 himself, he had a dream. Not the kind you shake off. The kind that redirects your entire life. He saw a field full of boys, rough boys, cursing, fighting. He tried to stop them with his fists. A man appeared. Noble, glowing. The man said, "You will never help these boys by beating them. Be kind. Lead them. Teach them that sin is evil and purity is precious." Then a woman appeared, beautiful, radiant. She said, "Make yourself humble, strong and robust." The boys turned into wolves. Then the woman showed him something. The wolves became lambs. She said, "This is your field. In time, you will understand everything." December 8th, 1841. In the sacristy of the Church of St. Francis of Assisi, Bosco meets a 16-year-old orphan named Bartolomeo Garelli. The boy can't read, has no job, nowhere to sleep. Bosco asks him if he wants to learn his catechism. Garelli says yes. That's the beginning. By 1846, Bosco has 700 boys showing up to his Sunday gatherings. He calls it the Oratory, not a building, a movement. He rents a shed in Valdocco, a slum district. His mother, Margarita, moves in with him. She's 59. She sells her wedding ring to feed the boys, her earrings, her necklace, everything. May 1847, Bosco takes in his first overnight resident, a boy from Valencia. The kid says, "I had 3 lira when I arrived in Turin. Found no work, no place to sleep." 6 more boys arrived that year. By 1852, 36 boys live with Bosco. 1854, 115. 1860, 470. 1861, 600. Eventually, 800. He's not running an orphanage. He's building something bigger. He opens workshops, shoemaking, tailoring, bookbinding, carpentry, printing, mechanics. The boys learn trades, get jobs, build lives. If you value documented Catholic history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from the biographical memoirs compiled by Giovanni Battista Lemoyne, published posthumously starting in 1898, and the 40 Dreams of Saint John Bosco from Tan Books, based on Bosco's own handwritten memoirs. These aren't just stories. They're recorded testimonies verified by hundreds of witnesses, including the boys themselves, documented under oath for his canonization process. Now back to the information. But something's happening that most people miss. Bosco isn't just feeding and housing these boys. He's watching their souls, and he's seeing things at night in dreams. Except they're not dreams. They're visions. Clear, detailed, prophetic. And they're showing him exactly what happens when a teenager stops praying and nobody notices. 1825. Bosco is 9. That first dream at Becci. But it comes back multiple times. 1844. He's at the Convito, the church's pastoral center. The dream returns with new details. 1845. Working with the Marchioness Barolo. The dream again, different angles, same message. He writes it all down. Pope Pius IX reads Bosco's dreams in 1858. The Pope orders him write down these dreams and everything else you have told me, minutely and in their natural sense. This isn't folklore. This is papal directive. Document this, because souls depend on it. February 1st, 1865. Bosco tells his boys one of you will die soon. The boys look at each other, nervous, confused. Bosco describes the boy he saw in his dream. Dark hair, specific height, certain features. 4 days later, a boy named Anthony Ferraris gets sick. March 16th, 1865. Anthony Ferraris dies after receiving last sacraments, exactly as Bosco predicted. John Bosco, a witness who helped Anthony in his final hours, gives sworn testimony. He says, "Don Bosco told us many other dreams concerning oratory boys' deaths. We believed them to be true prophecies. We still do, because unfailingly they came true. During the 7 years I lived at the oratory, not a boy died without Don Bosco predicting his death. We were also convinced that whoever died there under his care and assistance surely went to heaven. So what did Bosco see? What did the visions show him about teenagers and prayer?" Summer, 1862, the eve of the Assumption, August 14th. Bosco has a dream. He's at Becky, his brother's house, with all his boys. A stranger appears, the usual guide, always the same figure in these visions. The guide says, "Come with me. takes him to a meadow, points to a snake, huge, 7 to 8 meters long, monstrous thickness. Bosco is horrified, wants to run. The guide says, "Don't be afraid, stay." He brings a rope, says, "Take this end, grip it with both hands, I'll hold the other. We'll dangle it over the snake." Bosco hesitates. The guide insists. They lower the rope, it touches the snake. The snake writhes, convulses. The rope wraps around it, tighter, tighter. The snake thrashes. The rope strangles it. The guide crushes the snake's head, opens a box. The rope inside the box transforms into the words Ave Maria, Hail Mary. The guide explains the snake is a symbol of the devil. The rope is the rosary, a succession of Hail Marys with which we can strike, conquer, and destroy all of hell's demons. August 20th, 1862. After night prayers, Bosco tells the first part of this dream to about 100 boys back for summer school. The boys are riveted. They want more. Bosco says he'll tell the second part tomorrow, August 21st. The boys gather, eager, but Bosco says he doesn't think it's opportune to tell them yet. Too heavy, too disturbing. He waits. Eventually he tells them, and it's worse than they imagined. The second part. The boys in the dream gather around the dead snake, its flesh scattered on the ground. Bosco protests. "Don't touch it, it's poison." But the boys pick up pieces of the snake flesh, they eat it. They say it's delicious. Immediately they collapse, their bodies swell, harden like stone. Bosco tries to stop them, shouts, slaps them, punches them. Nothing works. More boys keep eating, keep falling. He's nearly out of his mind watching them die. He turns to the stranger, desperate. Isn't there some way to save these boys? The stranger says yes, by anvil and hammer. Bosco puts the boys on an anvil, hits them with a hammer. Most of them restore to life. Recover. The stranger explains, the snake flesh is sin. The poisonous meat symbolizes scandal that destroys faith. Immoral readings. Impurity. The boys eating it, despite the warnings. That's teenagers choosing sin even when they know it will destroy them. Why? Because the sensual man does not perceive the things that are of God. They can't see spiritual reality anymore. They've lost the ability to distinguish poison from food. The swelling and hardening, pride, obstinacy, love of sin, their hearts become hard as stone. The anvil is Holy Communion. The hammer is confession. Without these, no recovery, no life, just spiritual death. Bosco's biographer, Giovanni Battista Lemoynes, notes in the Biographical Memoirs, Volume 7, pages 141 to 145, that while explaining this dream, Bosco admitted he passed over details because they probably didn't concern the boys yet, but he made the core message clear. The poisonous meat is any content that kills faith. The tools for cutting free from sin's traps: frequent communion, meditation, devotion to the Blessed Virgin, confession. Without these, the boys have no defense. The devil's traps close and they fall. But there's a more terrifying dream. April 10th, 1868. Holy Friday. Bosco's been having nightmares all week. They exhaust him. He tells his boys on Sunday night, May 3rd, 1868. These dreams so exhausted me that in the morning I felt more done in than if I had been working all night. They also alarmed and upset me very much. He doesn't want to sleep. He sits at his desk until midnight, browsing books, terrified of what he'll see. Finally, exhausted, he props his pillow against the headboard, tries to stay sitting up, doesn't work. He falls asleep. Immediately, the guide appears. The man with the cap, Bosco calls him, maybe an angel, maybe a deceased pupil, maybe St. Francis de Sales. Bosco never knows for certain. The guide says, "Get up and follow me." Bosco protests. "I'm exhausted. I've been tormented by toothache for days. I need rest." The guide insists. They go outside, start walking. Hours, through valleys, mountains, a rose-hedged road. Beautiful at first. Then the roses disappear. Thorns show up. The road becomes steep, almost impossible to stand. They reach the bottom of a precipice. A dark valley, an enormous building, towering bronze portal, tightly locked. Boys are running down the road. Teenage boys, running toward the building. But there are traps, snares, lassos shooting out, catching boys, pulling them toward the bronze portal. Bosco watches in horror. He recognizes them. These are his boys, from the oratory. Some look like they're doing fine on the surface. Good conduct. Bosco sees knives on the ground next to the traps. Tools left there by a providential hand. The knives have names: meditation, spiritual reading. There are 2 swords: devotion to the Blessed Sacrament, devotion to the Blessed Virgin. A hammer, confession. Other knives: devotion to St. Joseph, St. Aloysius, other saints. Some boys grab these tools, cut themselves free, escape. But many don't. Many ignore the tools, or don't see them. The traps close. They're pulled toward the portal. A boy crashes into the bronze gates. The portal explodes open with a roar. 1,000 inner portals open behind it, a deafening clamor, like a body propelled by an invisible, violent, irresistible gale. Through the momentarily open doors, Bosco sees something like furnace jaws, spouting fiery balls. The youth hurtles in. The guide says, why was he looking backward in terror? Because God's wrath will pierce hell's gates to reach and torment him, even in the midst of fire. The guide forces Bosco closer, takes his hand, presses it against the first of the 1,000 walls. The pain is excruciating. Bosco screams, leaps back, wakes up sitting in bed. His hand is stinging, swollen. When he gets up that morning, the skin of his palm is peeled off. He writes later, having my hand pressed against the wall, though only in a dream, felt so real that later the skin of my palm peeled off. Bear in mind that I have tried not to frighten you very much, and so I have not described these things in all their horror as I saw them and as they impressed me. The guide lifts a curtain, shows Bosco a group of oratory boys, all known to him, some whose conduct seemed good. They're there, in that place. Because of specific sins, Bosco begs let me take down their names so I can warn them individually. The guide says no need. Bosco asks, then what do I tell them? The guide answers, always preach against immodesty. A generic warning will suffice. Bear in mind that even if you admonished them individually, they would promise, but not always in earnest. For a firm resolution, one needs God's grace, which will not be denied to your boys if they pray. If they pray. That's the key. The boys falling into hell, they stopped praying, or never really started. The boys who deceive their confessors, they're going through motions without heart. Anyone dying in this frame of mind chooses to be among the damned. Only those who die truly repentant shall be eternally happy. The guide spends the next half hour discussing the requisites of a good confession, what makes it valid, what makes it a joke, the difference between confession as a tool for freedom and confession as performance. Bosco tells his boys, do you really believe some of them would reform if I warned them? Then and there your warning might impress them, but soon they will forget it. Just a dream, they'll say. And they will do worse. Realizing they've been unmasked, they'll receive the sacraments, but this will be neither spontaneous nor meritorious. Others will go to confession because of a momentary fear of hell, but will still be attached to sin. Then is there no way to save these unfortunate lads? The guide answers they have superiors. Let them obey them. They have rules. Let them observe them. They have the sacraments. Let them receive them. Not complicated, not mystical riddles. Obey, follow the rules, receive the sacraments. Daily Mass, frequent confession, frequent communion. That's the defense. That's the fortress. Without it, the traps close, the snake's poison works, the portal opens. May 30, 1862, penultimate day of the month of Our Lady. After night prayers, before hundreds of boys go to bed, Bosco tells them another dream. The 2 columns. It's his most famous vision. Picture this, he says. You're with me on a sea beach, an isolated cliff, no other land in sight. The vast surface of water is covered with ships in battle formation, prows fitted with sharp beaks, all heavily armed with cannons, incendiary bombs, firearms, even books. They're heading toward one stately ship, mightier than them all. The flagship, the church. At the helm stands the Pope. He's directing the battle. The enemy ships attack, furiously, relentlessly. The Pope is wounded, falls. His helpers rush to him, support him. He recovers, gives more orders. The attacks continue, more violent. The Pope falls again, this time mortally. He dies. The crew panics, the enemies close in, but then 2 massive columns rise from the sea. One is shorter, topped with a statue of the Immaculate Virgin. A banner reads, Help of Christians. The other column is taller, topped with a host, large, radiant. A banner reads, Salvation of Believers. A new pope takes command. He steers the ship between the 2 columns, anchors it there, the Eucharist, and Mary. The enemy's ships ram the flagship, try to sink it, but it's anchored between the columns, unshakable. The enemy ships crash into each other, sink. The sea calms. The battle ends. The church is safe, anchored to the Eucharist and the Virgin. Don Rua, Bosco's assistant, summarizes the dream for the boys. Bosco adds, only one expression must be corrected. The enemy's ships are the persecutions. They prepare very serious troubles for the church. What has taken place so far is almost nothing compared with what will occur. There remain only 2 means to save ourselves in the midst of so much danger and confusion. Devotion to Mary Immaculate, frequent confession and communion. It is necessary to use every means and try our best to practice them and have them practiced everywhere and by all. Devotion to Mary, frequent confession, frequent communion. The same message, different visions, same solution. Bosco hammers it constantly. In his writing, his preaching, his daily interactions, he publishes in 1877 a short work called The Preventive System in the Education of Youth. In it, he writes, frequent confession, frequent communion, and daily mass are the pillars that must support an educational building that we desire to protect from threats and scourges. His quotes about the Eucharist, they're everywhere in his correspondence and books. My dear boys, love Jesus and the Blessed Sacrament, and you shall be truly happy. Go to confession and communion as often as your confessor allows. And when you can, visit Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. Visiting Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament is essential, my dear boys, if you want to overcome the devil. Listen, there are two things the devil is deadly afraid of: fervent communions and frequent visits to the Blessed Sacrament. Trust in the power of the Holy Eucharist and our Blessed Lady. Do what you can and leave the rest to God. Another dream. Bosco sees boys fighting ferocious animals with two-pronged pitchforks. The guide explains the two prongs symbolize a good confession and a good communion. That's the weapon. Another dream. The boys are at banquet tables, 14 tables. The guide shows Bosco which boys are at which table. Some tables have boys in mortal sin. Other tables have repentant sinners. Other tables have boys who never lost their baptismal innocence. Bosco can see the state of their souls by which table they're sitting at. The difference? The sacraments? The boys at the good tables? They're going to confession, receiving communion, praying. The boys at the bad tables? They've stopped. Or they're going through motions. Sacrilegious communions, bad confessions, no real prayer. October 1854, a 12-year-old boy named Dominic Savio meets Bosco. The kid's from Riva, near Chieri. Poor family. Blacksmith father, seamstress mother, 10 children total. Dominic asks Bosco to take him to the oratory. He says, "You are the tailor and I am the cloth. Mold me and make me into a beautiful garment for God." Bosco sees something in this kid, recognizes a soul in full harmony with the Spirit of God. Dominic makes his program clear at age 7 during his first communion. He writes it down. "I will go to confession frequently and communion as often as my confessor allows. I want to make Sundays and feast days holy. My friends will be Jesus and Mary. Death, but not sin. He lives it every day." At the oratory, Dominic is gentle, serene, happy, works hard as a student, helps everyone, teaches catechism, assists the sick, settles quarrels. He tells a new arrival at the oratory, "You should know that here we make holiness consist in being always cheerful, and we just try to avoid sin, which is the great enemy that robs us of the grace of God and peace of heart, and we try to fulfill our duties exactly." Dominic's health fails, weak lungs. Bosco sends him home to recover. March 1st, 1857. Dominic leaves the oratory. He doesn't want to go, wants to die there, but accepts the decision, spends his last evening at Bosco's side, discussing spiritual matters. March 9th, 1857. Dominic dies at home in Mondonio, age 14. He asks for extreme unction days before. His parents think he'll recover. He insists. They give it to him. His last words? "Goodbye, Dad. Goodbye." What was it the parish priest suggested to me? I don't seem to remember. Oh, what wonderful things I see. Then he's gone. Pope Pius XII canonizes him June 12, 1954, the youngest non-martyr saint until Francisco and Jacinta Marto in 2017. Dominic Savio is proof. A teenager can become a saint, can live with joy, can love God and be happy at the same time. Bosco's preventive system works, not because it's soft, not because it avoids discipline, because it builds fortresses around souls. Reason, religion, loving kindness, and at the center, the sacraments, daily mass when possible, weekly confession, frequent communion, devotion to Mary. Without these, the fortress crumbles, the snake's poison works, the traps close. Bosco sees it constantly in his dreams, boys who look fine on the surface. But they've stopped praying, stopped going to confession, going to communion out of habit, not devotion. The visions show Bosco the interior state, the hidden decay, and he warns them, constantly, generically most of the time, because individual warnings wear off, but sometimes specifically. When a boy is about to die, when the danger is immediate, he calls them aside, tells them what he saw. Some listen, some don't. The documentation is overwhelming. John Bosio's sworn testimony about Anthony Ferrari's, hundreds of boys testifying under oath for Bosco's canonization. They all say the same thing. Don Bosco knew. He saw things. He predicted deaths. He described sins boys committed in secret. He knew the state of their souls. When the church investigated his cause for sainthood, witnesses gave testimony about specific dreams, specific predictions, specific warnings, all verified, all documented. January 31st, 1888, Bosco dies in Turin at dawn, age 72, exhausted from work. His last words to his Salesians? Love each other as brothers. At the time of his death, the Salesian Society operates 250 houses worldwide, containing 130,000 children, from which 18,000 finished apprentices go out annually. Over 6,000 priests have gone forth from Bosco's institutions. 1,200 remain in the society. The society still exists. Second largest religious order in the world today, but the numbers miss the point. The real legacy? The message in the visions. The warning Bosco saw again and again in 40 documented dreams recorded in his biographical memoirs. When a teenager stops praying and you never notice, here's what happens. They lose the ability to distinguish spiritual poison from spiritual food. They start eating the snake's flesh. It looks delicious. It feels good. Everyone's doing it. They ignore the tools left by providence, the knives, the swords, the hammer, meditation, devotion to Mary, confession, communion. Without these tools, the traps close, the lassos pull, the portal opens. If you value this kind of deep research, subscribe. We're bringing you information most channels won't touch. Also comment which city you're from. This work is sourced from verified documents. The biographical memoirs by Lemoyne, the 40 Dreams published by Tan Books in 1997, based on Bosco's handwritten memoirs of the oratory written between 1815 and 1855, published posthumously in 1989. The Life of Dominic Savio by John Bosco himself, first published in 1859. These aren't legends, they're recorded history, verified testimony, papal documentation. Now back to the message. Bosco isn't gentle about this. He describes hell, graphically, the bronze portal, the 1,000 doors, the furnace jaws, the eternal fire, the boys he recognizes, his boys, good boys on the surface, but inside, attached to sin, deceiving confessors, performing devotion without heart. And the destination? Clear, irreversible, eternal. He tells his boys, I have tried not to frighten you very much. I have not described these things in all their horror as I saw them. But you need to understand, our Lord portrayed hell in symbols, because had he described it as it really is, we would not have understood him. No mortal can comprehend these things. The Lord knows them, and he reveals them to whomever he wills. The Lord revealed them to Bosco. Why? To save the boys, to warn them, to show them the tools, the fortress, the defense. It's not complicated. It's not about being perfect. It's about staying connected to the sacraments, to prayer, to Mary. Bosco sees boys who never lost their baptismal innocence. They're the ones at the good tables in the banquet dream. They're the ones who cut themselves free from the traps. They're the ones who don't eat the snake's flesh. What's their secret? They never stopped praying. They kept going to confession, kept receiving communion, kept visiting Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. They made holiness consist in being cheerful, avoided sin, fulfilled their duties. But Bosco also sees boys who started well and fell. Smart boys, talented boys, boys everyone thought were fine. The visions show him the truth. They stopped praying, maybe gradually, maybe suddenly, but they stopped. And once the prayer life dies, everything else follows. The moral decay, the spiritual blindness, the hardness of heart, the inability to distinguish good from evil. They eat the poison and think it's delicious. They walk into the traps and don't even see them. They ignore the tools that could save them. The parents don't notice, the teachers don't notice, the friends don't notice, because on the surface, everything looks fine. The boy still shows up, still smiles, still performs, but inside, the fortress is crumbling. The snake is wrapping tighter, the trap is closing, and by the time anyone realizes what's happening, it's often too late. The boy crashes through the bronze portal. The doors close, the furnace jaws close, gone. Bosco's message to parents and educators? Pay attention, not just to behavior, to the prayer life. Is your teenager actually praying or going through motions? Is he receiving communion devoutly or out of habit? Is she making good confessions or deceiving the confessor? Is he visiting the Blessed Sacrament or treating church like an obligation? Is she devoted to Mary or treating the rosary like beads on a string? These aren't small questions. According to Bosco's visions, they're life and death questions, eternal life and death. The difference between the boys who cut themselves free and the boys who get dragged to the portal, the sacraments, prayer, devotion, lived authentically, not performed, lived. Bosco's preventive system isn't about preventing external problems. It's about preventing internal decay. He writes in The Preventive System that education must be preventive, not repressive. You don't wait until the boy falls into mortal sin and then try to fix him. You build the fortress beforehand. You teach him to pray, to love the sacraments, to see Jesus in the Eucharist, to trust Mary, to examine his conscience, to confess sincerely, to receive communion worthily. These aren't extras. They're the foundation. Without them, the entire structure collapses. The visions confirm this again and again. Every dream, every warning, same message. The boys who survive, they're the ones who use the tools. The boys who fall, they're the ones who ignore them, or never knew about them, or knew but didn't care. The devil is real. Bosco sees him in multiple forms. A monstrous snake, ferocious animals, a massive toad, crows, a cat with eyes of fire. Each vision shows the devil's method. Deceive, distract, poison, trap, pull toward the portal. But the tools are there, always, left by Providence, right next to the traps. The boys just need to see them, grab them, use them. That's Bosco's entire mission, making sure the boys see the tools, know how to use them, build the habit of using them daily, before the traps close, before the poison works, before it's too late. The most disturbing part of Bosco's visions? The boys don't believe they're in danger. They laugh off the warnings. Call them dreams. Call them superstition. They think they're fine. Everyone thinks they're fine. Then suddenly they're not. The trap closes, the poison spreads, the hardness sets in, and by then, much harder to recover. Some don't recover at all. They die in that state, unrepentant, attached to sin, eternal consequences. Bosco sees specific boys in his hell vision. He recognizes them, names he won't speak out loud, faces he knows well, boys whose conduct seemed good. That phrase, seemed good, surface-level goodness, performance goodness, but interior decay, hidden sin, secret attachments, deceptive confessions. And where does it lead? The bronze portal, the furnace jaws, the eternal fire. Bosco begs the guide, let me warn them. The guide says, no, they have superiors, they have rules, they have sacraments. If they use these means, they'll be saved. If they don't, your individual warnings won't help. They'll forget, or ignore, or rationalize. The solution isn't more warnings, it's more prayer, more sacraments, more obedience, more devotion. This is Bosco's genius. He's not just telling scary stories, he's showing the infrastructure of salvation, the practical means, the daily habits, the non-negotiable foundations, for teenagers especially. Because teenage years are when the battle intensifies, the temptations multiply, the world's voice gets louder, the devil's strategies get more sophisticated, and if the foundation isn't solid, the fortress won't hold. Bosco proves it works. Not theoretically, practically. 6,000 priests come from his institutions by 1888. 1,200 stay in the Salesian Society. 18,000 apprentices go out annually. 130,000 children in his care. And among them, saints, like Dominic Savio, 14 years old, dead from pleurisy, canonized. Why? Because he lived what Bosco taught. Daily Mass, frequent confession and communion, devotion to Mary and the Eucharist, death but not sin, simple, clear, effective. The tragedy Bosco sees in his visions, how many boys miss it? How many start well and quit? How many get distracted? How many eat the poison? How many ignore the tools? How many crash through the portal? And how many people around them never notice? Until it's too late. The prayers stop, the confessions get shallow, the communions become routine, the devotion dies, and everyone assumes things are fine, until they're not. 1867. Pope Pius IX is upset with Bosco. Why? Because Bosco won't take his dreams seriously enough. The Pope says you need to write these down, minutely, in their natural sense. This is a legacy. For your boys, for the church, for everyone who needs to understand spiritual warfare. Bosco hesitates, thinks they're just dreams. The Pope insists. These are visions. Document them. Share them. Let people learn from them. So Bosco does. He writes them in his memoirs, tells them to his boys, publishes accounts, the dreams become famous, the life of Dominic Savio, the biographical memoirs, the 40 dreams, all documented, all preserved, all verified by witnesses. And the core message never changes. When your teenager stops praying and you never notice, the fortress crumbles. The snake's poison works, the traps close, the portal opens, but the tools are there, always. Frequent confession, frequent communion, daily Mass when possible, devotion to Mary, devotion to the Eucharist, spiritual reading, meditation, devotion to the saints. These aren't optional extras. They're the knives that cut the snares, the swords that fight the demons, the hammer that breaks the hardness. Without them, no defense, no escape, no salvation. Bosco's own mother, Margarita, understands this. She tells John, you have many good boys, but no one surpasses the beauty of heart and soul of Dominic Savio. Why? Because I see him always praying, remaining in church after the others. Every day he leaves recreation to visit the Blessed Sacrament. When he is in church, he is like an angel in heaven. That's the difference, that's the mark. That's what makes some boys cut themselves free and others get pulled through the portal. The interior life, the prayer life, the sacramental life, visible in their habits, their choices, their priorities. January 31st, Bosco's feast day, celebrated worldwide. He's the patron saint of apprentices, editors, publishers, schoolchildren, young people. But more than that, he's the saint who saw what happens in the invisible battle, the warfare for teenage souls, the strategies of demons, the tools of grace, the traps along the road, the portal at the end. And he documented it all, left us the warnings, the solutions, the practical means, not theories, lived reality, verified by thousands of boys who walked through his oratory. Some became saints, some became priests, some became craftsmen, but all of them saw the same thing. Don Bosco knows, Don Bosco sees. Don Bosco shows us the way. The final revelation, the discovery that reframes everything. 1888. Bosco dies. His body, eventually enshrined in the Basilica of Mary Help of Christians in Turin, Valdocco, the same district where he started with 700 boys in a rented shed, the same place where his mother sold her wedding ring to feed orphans, the same courtyard where Dominic Savio played, the same church where boys learned to visit the Blessed Sacrament daily. Inside the basilica, a white banner hangs, written in huge letters. Hic domus mea, inde gloria mea. This is my house. Thence goes forth my glory. Bosco saw it in his 9-year-old vision. The field, the wolves becoming lambs, the woman saying in time, you will understand everything. The dream repeated at the convito, at Barolo's, different details. Same message, the courtyard with porticos, the church, the flock, the lambs transforming into shepherds, the banner. His entire life's work shown to him before it happened, not so he would know the future, so he would know the path, the tools, the fortress, the means of saving souls. And the mechanism? Always the same. Frequent confession, frequent communion, daily mass, devotion to Mary, love of the Eucharist. These aren't Bosco's inventions. They're the church's treasures, her weapons, her defenses, her means of grace. Bosco just saw them more clearly than most, taught them more consistently, built his entire system around them, and proved they work, not by arguing, by results. Thousands of boys saved, hundreds becoming priests, dozens becoming saints, all because someone noticed their prayer life, built their sacramental foundation, gave them the tools before the traps closed. That's what Bosco saw when your teenager stops praying and you never notice. He saw the invisible decay, the hidden danger, the closing trap, the opening portal, and he left us the solution. Written in his memoirs, recorded by witnesses, verified by the Church, canonized by Pope Pius XI on Easter Sunday, April 1st, 1934. Title given by Pope Pius XII, Father and Teacher of Youth. Not because he was nice, because he saw what most miss, and he showed us how to save them.